for turning to 10. This is Southern New England's news leader.
On the program this morning, he's the moderate party candidate for governor. You need to know him, and we intend to ask the questions that will help you make an informed decision at the ballot box.
NBC 10 News Conference begins right now.
Well, good morning and welcome to this edition of 10 News Conference. I'm Parker Gavigan, filling in for Bill Rappley this morning. Our guest, moderate party candidate, William Gilbert. You prefer Bill?
Bill's fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on the program this morning. I think I think I'll consider this a success if we can learn a little bit more about you, about the party, the party's platform, and kind of get into some of the issues here, and let voters really know where you're coming from. So let's dive right in.
Okay.
All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Bill. You're originally from Florida, I understand.
I am. I was born and raised in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and my father owned a fleet of fishing boats here in Point Judith, Rhode Island. And so back in the 70s and the 80s when I was growing up, I actually spent my summers here. I spent my summers in Wickford. My grandmother had a little cottage down in Wickford, and I would spend my whole summers here. And by the time I was 18, I just really loved the New England character. I liked the charm of New England. I liked the history, being one of the 13 colonies. Everything when I was raised in Florida, everything was the same. It was, that cookie cutter like Warwick. We've turned into where I kind of left, but Rhode Island is a unique proposition, and I just fell in love with it. And at 18 years old, I moved up here, and I stayed full time. I ended up marrying a girl I met, had a child, and life goes on. Now here I am.
Yeah. So what, other than running for governor, what do you do for your day job?
Well, I'm actually an entrepreneur. I do several things. I wear a lot of different hats. I'm a real estate broker. I'm a real estate investor. I own rental properties. But I also have a significant resume. I'm actually a middle manager over at General Dynamics. I'm in charge of the overhaul and repair division of the nuclear submarine program, what they call the PSAs and the IDDs. Those are the boats that come back after they've been to service for a while. They come back, and it's kind of like overhauling a car. They're getting their tune-up. They're getting their oil change. And I run the union carpenters. So right now I manage union carpenters for a living. That's my night job, and I have 3 grandchildren, so my plate's full.
So let's throw running for governor right in there as well.
Absolutely, it's not something that my family's excited about. They'd prefer us to take our summers off and enjoy that, but we have a lot of things that we need to face. And like I said, I do have 3 grandchildren that I can't leave, and they're meshed into Rhode Island right now. Matter of fact, they're at the YMCA, the summer program right now. Oh. And, I really see our government right now and the way we're heading is we're actually stealing from our future generations. So I think it's important that, we get a handle on our government and turn the ship a little bit. Rhode Island is a great place to live. We have a lot of fantastic geography, but, we are heading in a little bit of the wrong direction.
For people who don't know you, how old are you?
I'm 52 years old.
52 years old. And so the moderate party, let's talk about this party.
Sure.
It's coming off quite an election 4 years ago.
That's correct.
When then candidate Bob Healy, the late Bob Healy, he garnered 22% of the vote on about $40.
That's correct.
Spending,
right,
which is phenomenal.
Bob had some excellent name recognition, and I think everybody would recognize today if we all voted for Bob Healy, the state wouldn't be in the situation it's in. It took me a lot of convincing to recruit Bob Healy to run for us. Bob Healy had always traditionally been the Cool Moose Party.
Mm-hmm. You knew Bob well.
I knew Bob well. I've known Bob since the 90s. Well, our politics weren't 100% fully aligned. Bob had the most integrity, and he was the most trustworthy person that I could find that also had name recognition that I'd be proud to stand behind. And so we recruited Bob Healy we had a couple of different goals. We wanted to make sure the party stayed alive, but we also wanted to present to the Rhode Island voters a viable candidate, a viable third-party alternative, one that wasn't a kook, a nut, a knucklehead, somebody that they could actually stand behind, and somebody that wanted to take money out of politics. And we effectively did that. We ran a campaign that was, we didn't request donations.
No, this was a loose and nimble campaign.
This was a loose
grassroots.
And we're gonna do the same thing this time. Unfortunately, we lost Bob Healy. He wasn't well and he passed away. And I have been struggling for the last 4 years trying to find somebody of that same caliber. of candidate. I really believe that the politics that we have today, and what Bob and I always talked about, is this integrity. I believe our laws are okay. We can change them at any time. We can simply reconvene the General Assembly and change a law if it doesn't work. Our Supreme Court does great protections, but they don't because of the integrity of the people. It's the people that we elect. They're not doing the people's business. For the last 4 months, we've heard a lot of rhetoric, but nobody's talking about the taxpayer anymore. What about the taxpayer? What about the student? We need to turn this ship and go back to the basics. It's basic bricks and mortar. It's basic tackling. This is like business 101. We need to do our bridges. We need to fix our roads. We need to make sure our workers are safe. A lot of this other stuff is minutia, and it's made just to enrich the political elite and the friends of the politicians, and that needs to stop. So, we're pledging also, once again, the moderate party is we're keeping money out of politics. We're not asking for any money. We're not seeking any donations. If somebody does wish to support the moderate party, feel free to share our posts. Feel free to support us in that manner. Feel free to knock on doors, take some literature. But money needs to come out of politics.
One of my favorite quotes from Bob Healy: the lessening of government's role and thus its control over the individual is paramount. The voices of the people must be heard.
That's correct. And we believe that, and that's one of the tenets. There's a lot of different laws. I call it the deep dive. I think one of the things that we need to do is the deep dive. Mr. Kachiri, when he ran, he wanted to do the big audit. And I think the big audit is great, but I want to go into the deep dive. There's a lot of things our government does and are in our way. My candidate, Rufus Bailey, he's running over in Woonsocket under the moderate party. Mm-hmm. He actually went to buy a brand new car. And from him moving to Providence to Woonsocket, he had to decide on the type of car he bought based on the car taxes that Woonsocket charges. When government's in your way to that level of minutia, it's, one of the things, these are the things that we need to look at.
Yeah,
these are decisions that we need to make. One of the other things that we're doing is, I put my management hat on, and I look at, there's only 8 forms of waste. We've done study after study in lean manufacturing and 5S, the stuff Carl Wadenstein talks about. This is stuff that I'm classically trained in. There's 8 forms of waste. Anytime I'm waiting in the line, that's waste. When I'm waiting in the line at the DMV, that not only am I waiting there, but my boss is waiting for me to come back to work. Mm-hmm. Those lines they multiply. Those are multiplier effects anytime we have wasteful government. And one of the things Bob and I talked about, and I still believe in, is today, I don't even know why we have to re-register our vehicles. If you don't move or change the color of your car, why are we having to renew that piece of paperwork? Nothing has changed.
Revenue.
It's about revenue. The second thing, by implementing that bureaucracy of the revenue for that stupid little piece of paper for your car registration, we're also inviting the police. We're in a police state where the police are still using, hey, do you have the driver's license registration, please, when they pull you over?
Sure.
When they already know that your car is registered or not before they even pull you over. They have the computer in their car today. Today, they're using that as a weaponization to also go into other Fourth Amendment and seizures and confiscations and arrests when they already know the fact. Matter of fact, in today's date, if you handed them a piece of paper that showed your car was registered and their computer showed it wasn't, they would still give you a ticket. That piece of paper is meaningless today. And so we're inviting government into our lives where it doesn't need to be on such a minutiae scale. And you multiply this out, that's what Bob and I were talking about. We need to dial back government in some areas, but we also need to increase it in others. Mm-hmm. We are failing some people.
Bill, for people who might be unfamiliar with the moderate party, traditional party politics, you've got the Democrats, you've got the Republicans. Most people in Rhode Island identify with one of those groups, more so on the Democratic side.
Right.
The moderate party was founded by, we should mention, Ken Block, of course, who then split with the party and ran as a Republican for governor in 2014 and lost to Alan Fung during a primary. What does the moderate party stand for? What are the tenets of the party?
Well, we've actually published a platform. I think it has 38 points. I think we published ours prior to, I don't even know if the Republicans have published theirs or the Democrats are still formulating theirs. Those basic tenets, Ken talked about the 4 E's. We talked about economy. The government should be a good steward of the economy. When we talk about we talk about ethics. We believe, like I said, removing the money out of politics, but also holding our elected officials responsible and accountable. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important that we do those type of things. We wanted to, as a party, we also want to have balanced budgets. We want to see more vocational educational training. I think that's probably one of the most important things when I look at a business standpoint to move Rhode Island forward. Without skilled workforce, we can't have high-end employers. And without high-end employers, I can't have a skilled workforce. These two things go together.
There's been more of a push recently for vocation.
And I'm going to keep pushing on that. I think we actually need to triple it. I think when the governor announced free 2-year education for CCRI, I think that money could have been better spent for addressing the use of vernier calipers. I think that doing some basic shop math, some trigonometry, micrometers, the use of a CNC machine with G code and M code. There's a lot of the things that the manufacturers are looking for, and it's really not reading Beowulf at CCRI right now. So we need to be able to run a bandsaw. We need to know what a torque wrench is. Our plumbers right now, some of the plumbers are billing out at $165 an hour for a private plumber.
It's an incredible wage.
They're making $200,000 a year. And we're training our students for jobs that don't exist. And if they did land a job, maybe at the $50,000 range, with a student debt of about $65,000. While we're not training them, we're not spending these assets and these resources. Some of the numbers I wanted to talk about. You look at the General Assembly increased 22% in the last 2 years. You look at the Office of Commerce. We've got over $76 million in the Office of Commerce. It's just ridiculous.
Bill, let me just hold you right there. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with the moderate party candidate for governor, Bill Gilbert. Welcome back to 10 News Conference. Our guest this morning is Bill Gilbert, the candidate for governor for the moderate party. We were just talking about the moderate party and what the party stands for, and you mentioned the 4 E's: economy, education, ethics, the environment. Bill, let's get into some of the issues that are affecting Rhode Islanders and that are, quite frankly, on Rhode Islanders' voters' minds. Let's talk about the PawSox deal.
Right.
You came out, I saw on social media, and you opposed it.
Horrendous deal.
You said that Governor Raimondo and Speaker Mattiello have loaded and aimed their political gun at every tax-paying property owner in Rhode Island. Why'd you say that?
That's correct. Eminent domain is a tool that the government uses, and it's been around since the English days, before our colonies even existed. But eminent domain is the power to take somebody's personal property to benefit society. Everybody, while distasteful, we recognize eminent domain for the use of things like railroads, power lines, hospitals. The first time in 2005, right here in our sister state, Connecticut, we had a decision in Kelo versus New London, where it was one of the first uses of eminent domain to take one person's livelihood and their homes for another man's private business, just what they call economic development. And there was a huge case that went out, and it's called Kelo versus City of New London. In 2005, the Supreme Court ruled that it was an actual governmental function, that was appropriate use of eminent domain to take one person's business for another.
And just to be clear, you're talking about the land that would encompass the stadium.
That's correct.
In Pawtucket.
And the stadium
down
itself.
at the Apex.
That's correct. Right now, the deal, based on that 2005 decision, Mattiello's deal and Gina Raimondo's deal has given a blank check to take property, to start the eminent domain proceeding by unnamed properties. So these properties aren't even named yet. They've identified, and through the use of their bill, have allowed the use of one company to go out and do a search and just look at some properties, put together a deal, and they can take those homes, those people's businesses. This is like one doctor taking a business from another doctor. I'd just like your office better. To compound that, what I believe is an abusive process, and we can talk about the Kelo decision. It gets a little esoteric, but the Kelo decision, we actually put a mechanism in place in 2008 to prevent that type of thing. They did enter run around that protection that we put in after the Kelo decision. To compound it further, what they did is they're using a redevelopment statute instead of the proper statute. And then they're also allowing entry of land. They're allowing to even find out if these people want to take your property, to go onto your land, walk your land, test your land. They don't want to compensate you. They're not identifying how long they have a right to look at the property.
Aside from eminent domain,
yeah.
What about the money?
Do
you think that the tax revenue that could be generated could
absolutely
pay
not.
the bill?
Investing in a minor league ball field is like investing in a horse and buggy. Baseball is going away. If we look pragmatically at it, it's not something that is on the forefront of the young millennials that generation. They're not getting all excited. They're not. There's never going to be a Taylor Swift concert going to the PawSox Stadium. But irregardless of that, the property rights issues are paramount. Secondly, not putting the money to the referendum is doing an end run around Article 6 of the Constitution. Simply making, when the Constitution says we can't borrow money without putting it to the voters, and then saying, well, we're going to make a quasi-corporation, they're going to borrow the money. That's like somebody that's stealing, but not stealing because they paid their friend to do it. These are the type of scams. It's a sham. A court, I believe, would find that this was a sham. And if elected, what I'm going to do is I'll seek a declaratory judgment on the practice of using eminent domain or using quasi-government agencies to do an end run around Title VII and Title VI. I also think it goes back to 38 Studios. They did the same thing. 38 Studios, we're still paying for them. We don't even need to. And so what's going to stop them when they say Pawtucket, the deal with Pawtucket, we're not on the hook? Why wouldn't we be? If it fails, isn't it going to be the same argument that they use against 38 Studios, saying, oh, we can't, we got to pay them because of our bond rating. We got to pay them for our good faith of our creditors. Where's that any different? So the Pawtucket deal is so much worse than 38 Studios because it's violating three tenets of governmental trust to the people. People need to be reassured that their houses are going to be taken for their neighbor. People need to be reassured that your politicians, your elected officials are good stewards of your taxpayer dollars. And you should have a right and a say on how those monies are directed. And they do an end run around all of those things. This is a big, they're just thumbing our nose. They're just being, typical politicians, I guess.
So following your logic, right. You wouldn't mind the team moving elsewhere or getting a better deal in, say, Worcester?
I have no problem with anybody fairly negotiating deals wherever they go. If Pawtucket finds that Rhode Island's a good deal and they want to stay, I would appreciate that. I think that's the bigger issue. Why isn't Rhode Island a good deal? We need to do that deep dive that I was talking about. We need to do a deep dive and to find out why isn't Rhode Island a good deal. We need to make Rhode Island a good deal for everyone. The lobster fishermen in Narragansett, we need to make it for the optometrist in Warwick. It's not just billionaires. Again, I had 3 grandchildren. Where are they going to work? We can't just keep giving away the house. We did it with GE. We bought GE's jobs, and we paid more than their salaries to buy the jobs. This isn't economic development. Right now, we got $78 million in the Office of Commerce. $78 million. We got another $30 million at the Economic Corporation. Our Rhode Island Convention Center loses $25 million a year. Our Rhode Island Convention.
It's a big line item in the budget.
It loses 25. We should sell it. People should get fired. What kind of management is this? Day in, day out. That we cannot sustain this. We have a budget. Our numbers, look at the Attorney General's office has gone up 42% in 2.5 years. 42% for the Attorney General's office. We can't sustain that. Gina Raimondo's salary's gone up 22% for her salaries in 2.5 years. Same head count. We can look at where our priorities are at. Gina and Mattiello have determined where our priorities are at. You can look at the increases that we have. You know what? Our educational budget's gone up 10%. While their office has gone up 20, 40. The Commerce Department has dropped, that convention center is a boondoggle. And so why is the PawSox going to be any different? If you go back to the Kelo decision in Connecticut, that didn't pan out. It's still vacant land. We took people's property for nothing.
Let me hold you right there for a quick break, and we'll be right back after this message. A couple of the issues, maybe a little bit more in a rapid fire sense, where we could kind of get your take on some of these issues that are affecting voters, quite frankly. Sure. UHIP. You've heard about this sort of boondoggle that's been going on, the massive $364 million computer system that was rolled out a couple of years ago. It was supposed to integrate all these systems. We've found that people are having difficulty getting food stamps, getting the necessary benefits that they've been getting. We've been seeing ridiculously long lines. The state, the governor, trying to fix this mess. Mm-hmm. What's your take on it?
I actually hold a certification in project management. I'm an IT project manager. This is the problem with this is the resumes don't match up for the job descriptions. They are unable to fix the problems. They don't understand it.
The people running state government.
That's correct. Again, I don't know why somebody's just not fired. They're not doing their job. To implement a new computer system, we've done it since 1963, since computers have been around. Mm-hmm. There's a way to roll out computer systems. There's a way to figure out what your milestones are, your benchmarks. We haven't seen that. Mm-hmm. That when they're even presenting the reports to the Senate, they should be able to tell us how much of the build process is done, what are the milestones, what are the deliverables. They're not able to do those certain things, and our governor, I don't believe she has a resume to watch this type of job. We can simply hire the right person to do this job. It's management.
Moving on, the car tax.
Car tax.
This has been the Speaker's baby. He's been trying to eliminate this over many years. $55 million was in the budget to cities and towns. That exemption was raised. They capped the amount. But you talked about it. You talked about your friend who was basing a decision on a car from Woonsocket to Providence.
It should be eliminated. We're being taxed to death, and we're using all these different taxes to hide it. And that causes bureaucracy. Again, with a deep dive, we need to get into every program and figure out, do we need programs, do we not need programs, where are they at, what's our current state and what's our future state? And then we need to align our taxes with it. Using a regressive car tax like this, it doesn't even use the book value, it's not implemented evenly, where you can have one Cadillac that's 1970, let's call it a 2003, tax at one spot in Woonsocket and it's taxed at something else in North Kingstown. These are just fundamentally unfair issues that people can't plan their lives. And it's also, most people, their home and their real estate's their number one purchase, and their car is the second largest purchase. This isn't where we should be generating our revenues. I would like to eliminate the whole tax. I'd like to realign a lot of our taxes, so I can't separate that tax from all the others. I would like to just flat out eliminate it and look for monies elsewhere.
Moving on, marijuana.
Marijuana, we should decriminalize it. We should decriminalize, I believe we should decriminalize a lot of things. When we look at our budget, wasting a lot of money.
What about the situation that we have here where Rhode Island has 3 medical dispensaries? Our neighbor to just to the east and north, Massachusetts, is now allowing it on the private sales, retail sales.
Right. Well, again, this goes back to just like what we talked about the PawSox. Our politicians are not watching out for the taxpayers. This is the good old boy network. We have 3 public dispensaries. They want to muscle out all the legitimate businesses and give it to their friends. We got to stop making criminals out of people. The government got to stop fighting our own people. This isn't a military state. This shouldn't be government by permission. You should be able to wake up on today and have a better life 3 months from now. Mm-hmm. We got to be able to walk around on planet Earth without the police harassing us, without the governments in our pocket. They need to stay out of our marriages. They need to stay out of our bedrooms. And we have marijuana. I don't smoke marijuana, but we have marijuana. And it's going to happen. We need to decriminalize it. We need to empty our jails and save the room for the people that are really violent offenders.
One area of life where the government has always been involved, schools.
Yes.
Governor Raimondo has made this a big priority. It's been backed by labor, of course, and that's to rebuild and refurbish these broken down schools. We only have about a minute left here, but what's your take on school construction?
Our schools are crumbling. I would go farther than that. I would implement immediately, I'd be working with the speaker, and I'd implement immediately a coalition to figure out how we regionalize these school systems. We can't have this money, and we can't wait for the towns to do it themselves. The legislature needs to do it. It needs to be driven by the governor.
39 cities and towns.
With 39 cities and towns, 39 fire departments, 39 school committees, 39 superintendents, 39 school buildings, 39 parking lots. These all add up. It's bad management, bad management. Everything that we're talking about lines up to bad management. We can yell and scream and at each other, and we can have a lot of issues, but what we really have is we don't have resumes that line up with the jobs.
I got to hold you there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being our guest this morning. Bill Gilbert, candidate for governor for the Moderate Party.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.